Liz Taylor's good friend, Liza Minelli, has also endured more than her fair share of personal tragedy. She was just 22 when her mother's lifelong dependency on prescription medication ended in her death of an overdose on a bathroom floor at the age of 47. Growing up in Judy Garland's shadow had been hard enough, but one of Liza's greatest regrets is that Judy never got to see the film that launched her career. 1972's Cabaret established Liza as a formidable performer in her own right and won her the year's Academy Award for Best Actress. Despite all the heartache, Liza still clearly idolizes Judy.
I love my mother like crazy. She's my guardian angel.
It was her guardian angel who introduced her to her first husband, Australian singer-songwriter Peter Allen. Peter turned out to be gay, and their marriage was over 5 years later. After that, Liza hooked up with Lucille Ball's son, Desi Arnaz. But just as the media were preparing for an announcement of their engagement...
My engagement to Desi Arnaz has... Well, the relationship has been deteriorating for some time, pleasantly, luckily. And there is no more engagement. That's all called off. And since I've been here and had this marvelous time, I also met a man called Peter Sellers and fell in love with him. And I'm very pleased to say that he fell in love with me, too. All right? And that's about all I've got to say.
Despite her fervour, the engagement came to naught, and husbands number 2 and 3 were producer Jack Haley Jr. and sculptor Mark Gero. After her divorce from Mark in 1992, she vowed never to marry again. In between trips to rehab in the 90s, she set about relaunching her yo-yoing career by taking over from Julie Andrews in the Broadway show Victor Victoria. In the year 2000, however, she was floored by a serious case of viral encephalitis, which left doctors predicting she would spend the rest of her life in a wheelchair. But rather like Liz Taylor, she proved she was made of sterner stuff and found strength in a new man in her life, producer and concert promoter David Guest.
Well, I lost a lot of weight, and it helps me, you know, because I have a bad back. The thinner I stay, the better I feel. So, and also, David inspired me, you know. So I want to work. I want to laugh. I want to have fun, you know. Everything's been a bit serious before.
Not only did he get her out of the wheelchair and back onto the concert trail, the long-term bachelor and collector of Judy Garland memorabilia persuaded her to break her vow of celibacy.
Here we are on the roof, and I thought, wonder what's happening. And all of a sudden, I turned around, I looked for Dave, and I went like this, because he's on his knee. And he asked me, and I said, yes.
2 months after splashing out $3.5 million on their lavish New York nuptials, Liza was happy as a clam as she announced that she and David were letting the cameras in for their own reality TV show. A year later, they were probably still paying off the caterers when the announcement came of a split so acrimonious that thankfully no cameras were around to film it. He claimed she had given him herpes, while she labelled him a drug addict. Then came David's shock allegations that Liza had repeatedly abused him.
Pardon me?
How are you coping with the allegations that have been in the newspapers the last couple of days?
I think she's doing great.
I mean, I'm fine.
But then smiling through the pain has been Liza's trademark ever since she belted out the tale of poor old Elsie in Cabaret in 1972. And just 2 years later, she was once again following in Liz Taylor's footsteps and joining the ranks of generous celebrities by lending her support to Sharon Stone's annual AMFAR benefit in France.
I'm looking forward to being with all of my friends, to raising money, to help people who really are suffering.
What is the importance of AMFAR? I mean,
it saves lives. It's very simple. It saves lives.